Dudes, what's happening, man? It's Trent. You know me, man. I've been doing concept art for games for a long time. I've designed a lot of video game characters, and I've designed a lot of characters for comic books as well. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an insight. You're going to literally peek over my shoulder as I'm working on a character design that I'm doing for an art project that I've got going right now. This is going to be subjective. I mean, every different artist and every different character designer is going to have a different process, a different mindset that they're in. But this is going to be some of the things that I think about when I'm designing some of the characters that I've designed. Okay, so first and foremost, when it comes to character design, the most important thing is going to be the purpose, the function. What is it about? What is this character about? When you're working in video games, a lot of times you'll get a little bit of a description from the designer. If you're designing your own character, and you're the designer, basically you need to write out your character's description. Where do they come from? You got to ask questions. Everything about good character design comes from asking good questions. What kind of materials would this character be made out of? What kind of a world do they exist in? How do they survive? What are their primary functions, in that world? And how do they interface with the world around them? The more of these kind of questions you can answer in the character's design, the more the character is going to look interesting and unique to your world. It's irreplaceable. You can't just pick that character up and put him into a totally different world. I can't put Aikida characters in Twilight Monk. They don't fit. Now, for your universe that you're designing, or whatever it is, if it's a comic book or if it's a video game or if it's just for your portfolio, I would recommend that you plan out what your intentions are before you even begin. So write out one sentence describing what your character is about. Now, with video games, most of the time, this has to do with the function of what the character is. It has to do with how they fight. If it's a story-driven game, then it's going to have a lot more focus on what they're wearing and what kind of symbols they might be wearing. This is kind of like one of my pet peeves. It's one of the things I hate when I see a video game where the character doesn't match what they're telling me the story is. A perfect example of this would be Van from Final Fantasy XII, for instance. We're told that this is a character who's like a hobo. He's basically like a street rat. He has no money. But when you look at his outfit, he's wearing these opulent jewels and intricate filigree design work in his outfit. The character design does not match the story that you're telling me. Now, this is probably just because you don't upgrade your visual look in the game, so they needed him to look as awesome as he could look so they could sell action figures and such. Great game, one of my favorites, but that character design just is one of my pet peeves, Some of the old Assassin's Creed games did this too. It's like, this guy's supposed to be a thief, supposed to be like not noticeable. He's just blending into the crowd with the monks. I don't think so, man. So your character's story should be important. That should be conveyed in every aspect of the character's design. If he's a hobo, give him like raggedy old rags, man. That does lead me to the second thing that I do think a lot about. I think a lot about themes. I think a lot about what singular identifying element really should stand out the most with this character. And so, like, for instance, with this character you're watching me design here, one of the most important things that you see and notice is all of this radioactive sludge that he has in his... it's not a water gun. It's... I know what you were thinking, man. No, man, this is like a kind of a radioactive sludge. And so he's got this radioactive sludge cannon, which his body actually produces, or that canister on the back of his backpack. That's where it's created. And so he has to fire that through the cannon, but it's got to have these tubes that kind of run through it. And so he's got to have this big, massive, intimidating bulk to his body because he is a boss. And I want him to be very intimidating, and I want the viewer to immediately notice this massive cannon, that he's lugging around. This is particularly important for this character design because that's the character's function. That's the primary thing that you want the player to notice. When you know what the singular idea is, or the major singular theme, the first thing you want the person to notice when they see it, try to stick to that theme and think of, like, maybe even it might help you if you write out a list of all the things that a character with that theme would have. If let's say that your theme is like a Halloween themed, skeleton or something, and it's like, well, what immediately comes to mind. You want to try to grab the things that are at the top of the list. You ever watch that show, Family Feud? They did this. It's like they would throw out a word, and then they would say, what are the most commonly associated words with that thing? So they might say like dresser. Well, what are like the top 10 things that people would immediately associate with a dresser? So that's what you kind of have to do, and you have to be pretty good at that in order to come up with good character design.
Yeah, you have to be good at Family Feud if you want to be a good character designer.
The third thing that you have to think a lot about, and this isn't, I wouldn't say like this is in any particular order, but I would say like it's very important that you think about the camera angle that the character is shot from. So if this is for animation, for instance, that's going to be, a little bit, you're going to have a lot of expression in the character's face, unless if it's like a robot character with no expression. You have to think about those things, like how is the character used, and if it's a character who you're going to see mostly throughout the game, you're looking at their back. Well, then you're probably going to want to design a very interesting back of the character. You don't want to have a very plain back of the character, and then the front is all interesting, but we never even see the front. That's kind of backwards. So think about how it's displayed to the viewer, and consider that in your design. And then also style, style of the game, or style of the animation, or style of the show that it's in. If you're doing a photorealistic Resident Evil type of a character design, you're not going to do it in the art style that you're seeing me do. No way, man. Like, the stuff that you're seeing me design for is like a very stylized indie game type of a feel, or maybe like a mid-range game, company would do something like this. But you wouldn't even see this in something like a big AAA game studio because it's not easily replicatable. Not every artist that they hire can do it. Let's say that you're applying to a specific studio or a specific team, which you should be doing if you are applying. Then you should be considerate of the style of the game that you're trying to design characters for. So designing characters for World of Warcraft is very different than designing characters for Diablo 3. And I know, because I worked on both of those games. The way that weapons are constructed, the way that armor fits onto characters, is totally different in every different game. And so that's true with your character designs. Even if it's for your own universe, you should have some consistency of art style across all of your characters. So when you put them in a lineup, or the viewer, or the reader, or the player sees all these characters together, it feels like a cohesive, consistent universe. Something else that's really going to help you with that is the design language. So you'll see a lot of shapes that you see in this particular character design across many other characters from the same world that character is in. For example, these rivets that you see in this character's shoulder pads, you're going to see those same rivets on other characters in this universe because it's built from the same parts. There's a relationship between all of the characters in that universe. And also, in terms of scope, and when we're going back to style, that shape language is going to be interconnected with what I'm saying about these parts, the consistencies of the parts across the character. But what you don't want to do is have too many totally different parts and shapes on one character design. So for instance, if you do a rivet design like what you see in this character's shoulder pads or on the end of the gun, you're going to want to use that in multiple places across the character. If you don't, you might end up with something that feels mix-matched. Those consistencies are going to give your character their identity. I'll tell you this, when somebody first looks at this character, or let's say that somebody is describing this video to you or this character to you, they might say, oh, you mean that big cyborg mech with the big radioactive sludge gun? Pretty damn identifiable. I haven't done too many of those. But if I start cranking out a different one every week, then they're going to go, well, which one? What do you mean? So when you look at the lineup of characters in Overwatch, for example, each one is very distinct. You've got your one line description for every different one. There's only one dude that's like the cowboy in Overwatch. I suppose you can have a secondary theme, but it has to be secondary. You almost have to make a chart and go, okay, thematically this character is 80 or 90% sledge cannon mech, cyborg, and maybe 20% rabbit themed. I'm not going to do that for this character. Sometimes coming up with something original means taking two things that should not exist and trying to smash them together. If you're a concept artist and you're a character designer and you want to exercise your creative muscles, try to make two things that should not fit together fit and make it cool. So like a rabbit knight, try it. you can maybe make it cool.
And you know what? If you can make it cool, that's going to be really unique and original. But that begs the question, do people want unique and original? The answer will upset you. But I think that's best served for a whole new video. It's a pretty in-depth discussion. So there you go. That's a lot of the things that I think about when I'm designing a character. And I'll tell you what, I learned a lot of this from doing a lot of skin design. Skin design for big AAA games is probably a lot less stressful than doing like the main character design. Oh my God. Sometimes you'll spend 6 months designing the main character. I think we spent 6 months designing the Demon Hunter for Diablo 3. Ugh, no thanks. I'd rather be doing skin designs. You get about 2 weeks to do it. And those go right into the game. And hey, man, it's really great practice for developing your iconic character design. I've done a whole workshop on skin design and how to get jobs as a skin designer over on my Gumroad channel. So I want to encourage you to go and check that out. As usual, you know, I'm here with concept art tips and art tips here on my YouTube channel every week. So don't forget to subscribe. And dudes, until next time, I'll catch you. Manyan Daban and ciao, baby. Oh yeah.